Certainly show channel here over at SubStars. South Park and their big gay agenda. First of all, absolutely go after Trump, but it's weird when you had 4 years of a dementia patient and his sidekick, the insane cackling witch, who couldn't get through a speech without rambling nonsense. That comedically, a pretty well target-rich environment. And then you look around at all mainstream media for all these any show with some kind of comedic bent, and it was just empty wasteland because their own side would probably hit them, take them out if like Saturday Night Live had seriously gone after anyone in the left wing. It just never happens. It doesn't matter who's in office. You had the perfect chance to roast them for 4 years, and you already had Mr. Garrison as Trump, and nobody had a problem with it. You had a gay character with orange makeup going around raping politicians. That's fine. Everything is fine because South Park goes after Jews, Catholics, Muslims, Scientologists, and I mean, like, who would even think of Scientology? And every race they can find, and nobody has a problem with it except for the occasional Rachel Leishman over at the Mary Sue. She gets triggered and says she wanted to shut down South Park because they present both sides of an issue. And her, in all seriousness, said that sometimes there are no two sides to an issue. There's just our side, which is, of course, the correct side. It is a clever technique that South Park used whenever they got started, I guess back in the 90s, because they started off by having Jesus Christ and Santa get into a wrestling match. So they went after Christians and poor white people. And you notice the silence from the ADL, the SPLC, the ACLU. And then when they get people acclimatized to that, they just turn the cannons on Jews, blacks, Mexicans, and nobody has the moral high ground to say anything because it makes them hypocrites. They were happy when it was going after Christianity, and it's like, well, now you're screwed. And what happened for the next 30 years is they have went after everyone. So South Park found a new deal worth $1.5 billion, and someone in the Twitter comments goes, "Get woke, go broke," or something like that. And it's like, dude, they're fine. South Park is going to be absolutely fine. So the reason they're engaging with the Department of Homeland Security, they're not seriously mad about this. I mean, they're in a mansions in gated communities. They're so far removed from reality, but they want people to watch their show, and it doesn't matter if they just got a $1.5 billion deal. The ego involved in not letting Trump win, they have to have numbers on the show. And if they can get into a fight with the president while they do a parody show on him, they're going to have the most watched show in a long time, the most watched season. And if anything, I'll be watching as well. I mean, it's like you see how clever it is to like, you set your targets on the president. It's like you got a guaranteed audience of people who want to talk about it. And it is sort of a bummer that they found a new deal, because the problem with shows now is they jump around from different platforms, which you have to pay for all these different platforms, and you either end up subscribing to too many of them, which turns out to be a waste of money, or you unsub. But the upside is that, well, they're commercial free until they decide to add commercials, and then they have a new higher tier without them. And if you told people that who signed up for streaming service that they would do that, manipulate the audience that way, they would have said, no way, that's so absurd. And that's exactly what they did. And people have to unsub and sub when their shows move around. And I don't have any paid subscriptions, and it's not just because you can pirate this stuff. It's just not even worth it to watch it. The only reason I would sell those ICs for it is to talk about how bad it is, which it usually is. I saw Fantastic Four the other night. The précis of that is, don't go watch it. Don't spend the $18. Wait for it come on Disney Plus. It's just too much vagina power and diversity. So quick video here. South Park is in its 27th season. It's got a uneven first episode, and the next episode is coming out in 2 days, where they went after Trump, which is fine, Wednesday, but they added in things that don't make sense. The thing that stuck out was the cartoon Trump pushing Christianity, and that people were turning to Christian nationalism, which would be an improvement to this current one. Even if it wouldn't be my first choice, I'd go with a race first, but whatever. So it's a straw man universe within South Park that isn't actually happening. It's like Parker and Stone are expecting some pushback to woke, and it taking the form of Christianity, and then maybe they're thinking it's going to trigger Christians. America is not Christian anymore. The Christians. It's Christian in name only, and I don't say that in the way it sounds. In the 80s, America was Christian. and you got to be old enough to know the difference. It was saturated differently in the 80s. Christians still had power. Though someone was told me to do a video on the Hayes Code a couple weeks ago, and it's in the back of my mind, because if you go back far enough, you saw with the Hayes Code, you saw what power Christians really had as you go back long enough as a voting bloc, as a pressure bloc. But in the 80s, it was that power was diminished, but it was still out there. And now it's like, no, Christians don't unite for anything anymore. But there is not much of an anti-woke pushback. I wish there was. Things would be cool, but not in the public eye. There are things happening, of course, sub rosa, but South Park isn't going to cover those sort of things. I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they'll do like the Patriot Front people over here, Patriotic Alternative or something. There's a couple of groups like those, and I guess that would be kind of, I don't know where you go with it, but there's not a rise of Christianity. There might be an underground rise of nationalism, but there's no, like, religion has nothing to do. It's probably more pagan, and for them, probably like Christianity, I don't know what you call it, like socially Christian, or like Christian kind of in name only, or just kind of as a background structure. But the point is, none of this is coming from Trump himself. Nobody thinks Trump is religious. You would have to be insane to believe him if he came out and said he had some kind of conversion to Christianity or something, or got reborn or one of those kind of things. That's pretty much the definition of a straw man. So there just isn't any right wing pushback, not in the way that they depicted it. There is the same controlled right mechanism of the Charlie Kirk types, though now there's kind of a little split with the Tucker side over the Epstein issue, and they went through that live on that, like, Tucker and Kirk, and I don't know if they had that planned. And South Park covers the Epstein issue, sort of, but the real issue is a mess because you had 4 years of Biden and his whore to release it, and they didn't, for two reasons. One, because probably too many people on both sides are on that list. Yeah, our politicians are probably selected and not elected, so they can just find degenerates who are susceptible to this kind of honeypot. And two, because of who is behind it, which is why Trump, of course, won't release it. So the reason the episode doesn't work is because they went in to do a hit piece against Trump, which is fine, except they were silent about the dementia patient and the blowjob queen. And then they switched from Mr. Garrison raping everyone to death to Canadian Saddam Hussein. I mean, all this stuff feels like this is like 10 years behind the curve. And I'm sure the Canadian Saddam will make sense in later episodes, but they had to build in a straw man to go after Trump, and there's still plenty of politically correct, of the trans, gay, woke Disney stuff to cover. It's not like that stuff has completely gone away, and maybe they're so hard. Maybe they've been so far ahead of their time predicting the fall of Rome, but now reality is kind of the parody. Like they made fun of the trans insanity with men in sports with that wrestler guy, but then it actually happened. And in some areas it has stopped, and in some areas it's ongoing. And, I look around, like, that kind of SJW stuff. What's the next big movement that the left is pushing? That something like South Park could parody. I mean, like, once you go beyond, like, what they're doing to kids, I don't think there's, like, the left would actually, you could do an episode where the left actually tries to open a wormhole to hell or something. Anyway, so the trans thing was insane for like peak 10 years. Then Europe started ending the trans hospitals for kids. And I think they did something with the Wu flu. They stopped, Europe stopped pushing the Wu flu treatment before America or something. I think America still pushes it. And then some American hospitals just ended the child treatments of, Munchkinson syndrome by proxy. I mean, really, you should be treating the parents. They come into the office and you just slap the shit out of them until they leave. So adults, now they've got to wait until 18 to sterilize themselves. So, hashtag winning. So still in many areas in America, reality is the parody. Things are so bad in reality that the South Park show isn't edgy anymore. The things they would have to cover would be like Nons looting, that type of thing, street takeovers and the crime increase, grooming gangs, Antifa terrorism. But the real world problems are non-white and Antifa, domestic terrorism, and Israeli involvement in blackmail. So South Park would just have to go all in on destroying the left, and they don't have the balls to do that anymore, even though that is your target-rich environment because the left is doing so many of these ridiculous things. So in a better world, they would end the show. But normie mouth breathers love these zombie shows, the ones that just continue on. It's the same story with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they've been dead for a decade, but they can't stop because there's too much money involved, where they make how many millions a year, and it's like the show is obviously run out of steam after kind of episode 9, and it's it's over 10 years, 15 years past episode 9 now. And if this was 10 years ago, I'd assume that South Park would pull things together in a conclusion of future episodes. I think that ship has sailed as well. The truth is, TV and movies now, it feels like they're really on their way out. These are zombie shows for a low IQ audience. The audience that the South Park that showed Muhammad as a superhero, when was that? Over 20 years ago, is gone. And you need that kind of energy to make good shows. Going after Trump is not edgy. Going after Islam is edgy. And they cucked on that a couple of years after it came. I guess it came out maybe pre 9/11, which was kind of the turning point in America, when America decided just to give up. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next episode.